Shah Rukh Khan was 3 years my senior.
Yeah.
And I think right from junior school itself, Shah Rukh Khan was Shah Rukh Khan.
Okay.
There was like a little, I think that he was enigmatic. I think he was born a star.
Right.
And throughout, as I also mentioned in my book, like he was always looked up to. Everything was like Shah Rukh Khan, Shah Rukh Khan. There was something about him,
Okay.
and he was good in academics. He was of course good in theatre.
Yes.
He was good in. He made it to school sports teams. But more than that, it's that halo, that charm that he had. And there's even a little anecdote I state that we had an elocution teacher, Mrs. Sudan. We all had the hots for her, but people used to say that she had the hots for Shah Rukh Khan,
Ah, okay.
even though
Interesting.
he was in middle school at that time. And so yeah, so that's Shah Rukh Khan for you. But people are reading everything. Number one. Number two, I think the younger lot are reading more fiction. I think women read a lot more fiction. Men above a certain age don't read much of fiction. And I think again, this is just a cursory analysis that I have. Is I think men above a certain age, maybe above 25, 30, 35, they feel, oh, I can't be seen reading fiction. So authors don't make money from writing books for multiple reasons. One, maybe the book wasn't going to sell enough numbers. Number two, even if the potential was there, maybe the publishers did not invest enough editorial quality time in it to raise the bar of the book. And then thirdly, they did not invest enough in marketing the book.
So coming to books again, you have authored lot many books. And one question I had is a very simple one. You run a bookstore, you're a traveler, photographer. आपको इतनी books लिखने का time कैसे मिलता है?
To friends, I joke, I'm unemployed. I've got nothing else to do except write books in a bookstore. But again, for me, I think the way I'm wired, either I'm doing things not in the fourth gear, not in the fifth gear, I'm doing things in the eighth gear, or नहीं तो I'm in neutral, गाड़ी on है और लेकिन कुछ हो नहीं रहा है.
Namaskar, good afternoon. Welcome once again to Kitabi Baatein, a podcast where we make sense of India and the world through books. Friends, talking of bookstores, there are bookstores who sell books, and there are bookstores who sell experiences, who sell positive vibes. Today, I have the honor of being at such a bookstore called Kunzum Books in Delhi's Greater Kailash M Block Market. And today, I'll be interacting with Mr. Ajay Jain, the owner of Kunzum, who is not just a bookseller, but also a storyteller and a photographer. So come, let's explore Kunzum and Ajay, with whom we'll also be interacting about his latest book, Charlie's Boys, a memoir of his school days at St. Columbus. So come and let's see what Kunzum Bookstore has for us. So friends, we're entering Kunzum Bookstore, and as I said, it's not just a bookstore, it's an experience, it's a vibe. The moment you enter, you can see it is loaded with posters and other stuff related to books, giving you that sense, that experience of the warmth of books. Come, let's explore Kunzum Books. Hi Ajay.
Hi Vijay, welcome to Kunzum.
Thank you. So friends, we are finally at Kunzum Bookstore, and as I just mentioned, we are not in a bookstore, we are in a place which gives book lovers an experience, a vibe which you cannot find in any other bookstore. Ajay, welcome to Kitabi Baatein. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's an honor to be on this show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Ajay, when we are talking to you, I think you're a multifaceted personality. If someone reads your bio, you are a photographer, adventurer, storyteller, a bookseller. So you've worn many hats. Which Ajay am I talking to today?
I think the way I would like to identify myself is primarily a writer. Well, that's what I do at the core of everything. And whatever else you see is kind of just built around that.
Right.
I love books, that's why I write books. And I built a bookstore because I figured that society needs places like these to come to, not just to buy books, but to browse, to interact, have conversations like these. So that's what I am. But yeah, I think I would like to identify myself as a storyteller or a writer primarily.
So there are many bookstores, and then there is Kunzum, and your idea of having a bookstore is completely different from other bookstores. You believe in giving an experience, building a community of readers.
Yeah.
What made you take this move of building not just a bookstore, not just a dukaan, but rather an experience store?
So I set up Kunzum not because I was looking for work or a business opportunity, but I felt that I need to create something where it's more of a cultural kind of a cultural place. And and like I said, because I wanted to do something around books. So I thought to myself as a customer, when I go to any bookstore, what do I like and what do I not like? So I started from there, and then I started building all the elements into Kunzum the bookstore, and that's why you see what you see today, because I started looking at it from a customer point of view.
Right. So Kunzum is a bit odd name, a bit different name for a bookstore. I think it has something to do with when you were lost in the mountains in Spiti Valley, you came across the Kunzum mountains, or it's something like that. If you can tell a bit about that.
So somewhere around 2007, I was at a personal and professional crossroads in my life, and I was wondering, where do I go from here? And because I was not going anywhere in life, so I decided to go from nowhere to everywhere as a travel writer. And I just one day I woke up and I said, okay, I want to be a travel writer. I want to do photography and primarily explore my own country. And my first journey was to a place called Spiti, and I discovered a place in the mountains called the Kunzum La. La means pass.
Right.
And when I came back and I called my travel blog kunzum.com. So the name Kunzum comes from there.
Wonderful. And I think we have you had a wonderful journey since then, as I can see through this bookstore, there are other, outlets as well. So when it comes to, selling books, you have a passion for books and you're building communities around. How do you think having that business perspective as well as following this passion, how do you think these two match, or do you find a struggle between the two?
Well, it's not easy. If you go to a typical investor, we see you go to a shark in a tank, they will tell you, oh, it's not a good idea. You can do so much more, something else with this real estate.
Yeah.
But then my logic is that if everything is to be driven from an investor point of view, from a financial ROI point of view, then in this society, we would have no art, we would have no culture, we would have no literature, all things that make us human, all things that make our life beautiful. So somebody has to do that.
Of course.
Yeah, so that's where I come from.
It is often said that bookstores are dying. People are not reading much. We have Instagram, we have OTTs, and that's where people are spending their time on.
Yeah.
What's your take on this? Are bookstores dying or are they flourishing again?
So I have a double take on this. Yes, overall, reading long form printed on paper is significantly down. In fact, the other day I was thinking that primarily we blame distractions like social media, like Netflix, OTT and everything. I realized there's one more reason why reading is down. It is because our whole work culture has changed.
Right.
Which is that we are expected to be connected almost 24 hours onto our mobiles, which means our boss could call, a colleague could call, a customer could call, a vendor could call, and we should be available.
Right.
Which means that we are hooked to that device next to us. It doesn't leave us totally free then to start exploring other things. You can't say after 6 o'clock, 6:30, my phone will be in the other room. It doesn't happen. And so I think that's one reason to blame. And the other reason why bookstores are not thriving in a country like India or are facing challenging times is because of Amazon. I'm very clear about that, which is that as long as you have discounting on Amazon, customers will prefer to buy on Amazon.
Yes.
They may not realize that coming to a bookstore is a different experience, there's a discoverability, वो सब बात की बातें हैं.
Yes.
But primarily they say, oh, Amazon is cheaper, it's more convenient because they deliver.
Yes.
But there are enough countries, especially in Western Europe, which have introduced fixed pricing for books.
Okay.
You can't even subsidize shipping, which means bookstores and Amazon or other e-commerce players are at par. The moment that happens, bookstores are thriving because even if people have to drive, they still go to a bookstore rather than go to Amazon.
True.
But which means if bookstores are thriving, more bookstores are coming up. Overall, reading is going up in those societies.
Yes.
Because it becomes culture forming.
Right.
If you like books and you're going to a bookstore with a friend or family who doesn't like books, but once they're in the store, they also get kind of, chalo hum bhi dekh lete hain.
Yes.
And then they start browsing, they like something, वो धीरे-धीरे फिर वो जुड़ते जाते हैं लोग.
Yes. And would you say that the attention span of people is falling? We are in the era of reels where we don't like something, we can skip in 2 seconds. Because when I read books, especially related to history, I was reading a 900-page book and my friends was asking, "अरे तूने book पढ़ी है सारी 900 pages की?" तो attention span, as I said, so that is also one of the, do you see that also the reason because people think अरे इतना कौन पढ़ेगा?
Although, hey, that is exactly the thing. So we are we have so many distractions, our attention span is down, but then we have to sort this problem at the individual level, right? If you don't allow tobacco abuse, you don't you don't allow alcohol abuse, you don't allow narcotics abuse in your body, right? Why do you allow even this abuse? Just because it's not manifesting itself physically or medically instantly. The thing is that we should still understand that whatever affects our mind eventually affects our body. So it is a medical problem.
Very true. Very true. So coming to bookstore, what do you think people are reading these days? More fiction, non-fiction, a mix? What people prefer?
So people are reading everything, number one. Number two, I think the younger lot are reading more fiction. I think women read a lot more fiction. Men above a certain age don't read much of fiction. And I think, again, this is like this is just a cursory analysis that I have, is I think men above a certain age, maybe above 25, 30, 35, they feel, oh, I can't be seen reading fiction. I should be reading stuff on history, politics, biographies, business books.
Geopolitics.
Yeah, because I should sound informed. But the same person will go to a cinema hall and watch a Dhurandhar or Salman Khan or Govinda film.
True.
Right? उसमें उनको कोई शर्म नहीं आती है. Right? But इसमें वो लगता है कि it's a matter of shame that I'm seeing wasting my time reading a novel. But novels is where the stories lie. This is where, even if it's a fiction, this is where you understand people, you understand nature, you understand the world at large. That's how empathy comes in. That's how your creativity comes out. People don't understand that.
Absolutely.
So they need to be reading more fiction. So India is a very strong non-fiction country from a sales point of view. But people who read fiction can't read anything else.
Very true. I can resonate with that. I was speaking to a relative of mine and they have a huge collection of books. And he was saying that, I buy a lot of non-fiction books. I read a lot, but also non-fiction books look good on the bookshelf.
Yeah.
People think you are intellectual. So that happens. Coming to fiction as well as non-fiction, there is a proliferation of writers in India, if we see, in the past 10 or 20 years. Many people call it the Chetan Bhagat era because he kind of, in some way, revolutionized reading English novels.
Yeah.
And since they've seen a proliferation of novels, proliferation of writers who write both fiction as well as non-fiction. Do you see any deterioration in the quality of writing today after many years and proliferation of many authors?
I think what's happening is there's also and I keep questioning the publishers that they're coming up with so many books.
Yeah.
Like your big publishers like Penguin and HarperCollins, I think they come out with over 500 to 600 books a year in English language.
Yes.
And but then they say, so we have to have a diverse range of books coming out, different titles and everything. But what's suffering is the quality. That editorial judgment kind of gets compromised, and that is something I feel. So that's why you see how many books from India that are published in the English language make it to the Western market.
Right.
Barely any.
Right.
That means the bar is so low, so that needs to. In fact, I wrote a blog post the other day that we need to raise the bar.
Right.
Publish fewer, but publish better
quality. Right.
Yeah. So I think that is suffering, and what's also suffering is in that pursuit for commerce. A lot of books are being commissioned just because the writer is a big influencer, or they are an actor, or they're a sports star, or they have some influence where they say, "Ab books publish kar do, bikwana mera kaam hai." So they'll get some government orders, they'll get some other institutional orders, they'll sell by the thousands or tens of thousands. चाहे कोई बुक वहाँ पढ़े ना पढ़े तो वो अलग बात है.
सेल हो गई तो
पर बुक सेल हो गई, पब्लिशर्स के पास इनकम आ गई और ऑथर को एक वैनिटी मिल गया कि मेरे देखो 50,000 बुक्स बिक गई.
तो कमिंग टू ऑथर्स, आपने ऑथर्स की बात, खुद एक ऑथर है, आपने बहुत वाइड वैरायटी ऑफ टॉपिक्स पर बहुत सी फेमस बुक्स लिखी हैं. एक जो ऑफन एक कंप्लेंट में देखता हूँ फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑथर्स इज दैट राइटिंग इज नॉट समथिंग they can take as a full-time job. It can at best be a hobby. It can be a sidekick. But you cannot be a full-time author in India, or basically you cannot make good money while being a full-time author in India. So what's your take on that?
So authors don't make money from writing books for multiple reasons. One, maybe the book wasn't going to sell enough numbers. Number two, even if the potential was there, maybe the publishers did not invest enough editorial quality time in it to raise the bar of the
Right.
book. And then thirdly, they did not invest enough in marketing the book.
Yes.
So you don't make like enough income from royalties except a few authors.
Yes.
But if somebody really is kind of committed to this space and they say, no, I don't want a day job of a software coder, but I really want to stay in this creative space, there are other ways to make money. Okay, you are not getting enough royalty, but you could be a speaker, you could be a consultant in that space, you could be running workshops, you could be doing, there's so many other kind of related things you could be doing. Yeah, it's an effort, no
Yes.
doubt. But but to make a living, it's an effort anyway.
Of
Right.
course.
If authors are creative and a little enterprising, they can make a living just on the basis of the books and the content they specialize in.
Right. Now coming to books again and authors, English is the like most spoken language, most read language in India.
Yeah.
What do you see the present and the future for regional languages and Hindi books?
I think the vernacular section is in its own pockets doing very well.
Okay.
You go to Tamil Nadu for Tamil, you go to Kerala for Malayalam, you go to the Hindi belt. Books are doing well, but I think the southern states and maybe maybe West Bengal side are doing better. But I believe I hear from Hindi publishers that numbers are declining even in the Hindi belt,
Yeah.
which is disappointing. And in fact, the other day I was listening to a very famous writer, Ashok Bajpayee,
Ji.
and he was saying that the other problem is that a lot of young writers, even in Hindi, what they're doing is they're just getting straight into writing books without reading books themselves.
Yes.
So उसमें क्या हो रहा है जैसे कि उनको पता ही नहीं कि वो जो बताने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं वो ऑलरेडी कोई बता चुका है पहले. तो आप रीडर ही नहीं हो तो आप राइटिंग कैसे करोगे?
कैसे
फिर आप अच्छी राइटिंग नहीं कर रहे हो तो फिर वो रीडर उठाएगा, वो उसको मजा नहीं आएगा, कहेगा ऐसा तो मैं रील ही देख लेता.
Exactly.
तो ये प्रॉब्लम आती है.
And on top of it, many Hindi writers now they are thinking in English, they are reading more books in English and writing in Hindi.
Yeah, so I think so you have to be rooted in the language
Yes.
that you are writing
Exactly.
in. Right, and it's not about patriotism or it's not about anything else, but you have to be like a student of that language that you're
Absolutely.
writing in
Absolutely.
to really excel.
No, that's true. So coming back to Kunzum, you give an experience to people. It's not only about buying, selling books. You hold many events, authors come. So tell us a bit about that.
So like I always say, Kunzum is a bookstore, but it's also being built. It's also being built as a cultural institution, which is that we bring in all kinds of events and interactions, not just author events. We do films here, we do theater, we do all kinds of workshops, we do talks, we do music, you name it, we do it here. Because it's bringing together different forms of stories, different forms of creativity. Then it becomes like a vibrant place. And so the store has been designed to host all such events. And secondly, we also facilitate conversations between strangers. What happens in today's day and age, ek to वैसे ही because of social media and because of our mobiles, we become very unsocial.
Yes.
We are uncomfortable talking in person to each other.
True.
And then if you go to places, you're sitting in a cafe, you're sitting in a restaurant, it's very awkward to start talking to a stranger. But when you come to a place like Kunzum, you can strike up a conversation with anyone and nobody will mind. And because people are coming with a certain mindset,
Yes.
in fact, most conversations actually become very engaging conversations.
Because it's a common passion which is bringing it together. You may be from different backgrounds, doing different work, different job or business.
Absolutely.
You have one thing in common, you all love books.
Love books, love culture, love anything creative.
Right. So we are in the kids section of Kunzum, and Ajay, one important question. Do you think kids are reading? Are their parents encouraging them to read?
So that is the one hope. Children are reading books. It's a very much part of their lives. And for most booksellers, I think the biggest sales segment is children.
Oh, wonderful.
The problem is the moment they cross the age of about 9, 10, 11, that's when schoolwork pressure
Yes.
and gadgets come into their lives.
Right.
And then suddenly reading drops. That is the problem.
But again, you have a wonderful collection. So when it comes to kids, say 7, 8 years of age, do their parents decide or they also show some preferences? I want to read this book or something.
No. I think the moment you cross the age of 3, 4, children know what they want.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they're very particular. कि हमें को ये वाली बुक चाहिए और ये चाहिए. They know what books they like. Of course, parents give their recommendations, they give our recommendations, but children are very clear in their heads.
And in general, what do kids prefer? Because there are like basically Indian books like Amar Chitrakatha and all, and there are a lot of foreign authors. Your Usborne publisher publishes lots of books.
Yeah.
How do you see, what do kids themselves prefer? When the kids say I want this book, वो क्या prefer करते हैं?
So again, I think kids read everything. The problem with parents is that you take 6 books for a child today.
Yeah.
In the afternoon, by evening they finish the
They
books.
finish the book.
Because they read them so fast, and
Right.
next day they want more books. So they're pretty much reading everything. The other interesting thing is, when it comes to children, just like their clothes and like their shoes, every year it's a different market altogether.
Of course.
You have to replace your shoes every year. You have to replace your clothes every year,
Yeah.
and likewise for books, because suddenly the reading changes, because they're moving up the academic ladder so fast. It plateaus around 12, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
But before that, every year you have something learning new. So your tastes are evolving. So you're reading pretty much everything from your Amar Chitra Kathas to the fancy Usborne books.
Right. So one related question to technology again is, you talked about social media, its negative impact basically. Another aspect related to technology, which is in a way positive for book lovers, is Kindle.
Yeah.
And Kindle is now quite famous in India as well. What impact do you see? Does it helps people like you because people get into reading, so they move to eventually to paper books as well? Or do you think Kindle is again a bookstore killer, so to speak?
So Kindle and audiobooks make more news because they're backed by technology companies
Yeah.
with huge marketing and PR budgets. But the reality on the ground is, worldwide, most books that are being read printed on paper. The penetration in a market like India amongst people who are reading books is probably over 95%.
Oh, nice.
Right? Maybe in Europe it might be 85-90%. Maybe in America it might be 80-85%. But worldwide, at least 80% of books that are being read printed on paper.
So Kindle or an ebook reader is, or audiobooks, more like a vanity purchase.
Yeah. So yeah, it's. I think there is a segment that uses those devices. Most Kindle users I've seen are senior citizens because they can change the font size. Right? But I don't see the younger lot really kind of too much into Kindle.
They're more into paper books.
Paper books, absolutely.
So you have your stores in Delhi, and Delhi is, if I'm not wrong, considered one of the biggest markets for books. Talking of India, which cities do you think have the most readers, or where most of the sales take place?
So I read a report just the other day. Delhi is clearly the biggest market for the English language trade publishing. When I say trade publishing, it's all the general books you see in a store like ours.
Right.
And so Delhi is clearly the biggest market. And then I think followed by maybe Bombay, Bangalore, and to some extent Chennai and Calcutta.
Right.
But these are really the biggest markets. But Delhi is by clear the biggest market.
Biggest market. So coming to books again, you have authored many books, and one question I had is a very simple one. You run a bookstore, you're a traveler, photographer. आपको इतनी books लिखने का time कैसे मिलता है?
To friends, I joke, I'm unemployed. I've got nothing else to do except write books in a bookstore. But again, for me, I think the way I'm wired, either I'm doing things not in the fourth gear, not in the fifth gear, I'm doing things in the eighth gear. और नहीं तो I'm in neutral, वो गाड़ी on है और लेकिन कुछ हो नहीं रहा है. So I kind of do things in bursts. Abhi, when I sit down to write a book, then till I don't finish that book, the next couple of months, I'm mostly focused on that. And then there would be like a lull, and I'll keep doodling with ideas, I'll keep reading, I'll keep making notes. But I don't know, it's a question I never thought about. It just comes to me. And I think maybe because of my journalistic training, I'm just kind of wired to, when you get down to writing it,
Right.
The thing is, the idea has to click in my head.
Yes.
That this is going to be the story or this is going to be the structure. The moment that happens, then it just flows.
This is interesting. You said it just flows.
Yeah.
And I have asked this question to many people who write books and do some other stuff as well. And this is generally the answer I have got. I remember the first person I asked this question was late Vivek Debroy ji. And I asked him, you are an economist, you work with the government, you are a Sanskrit translator, and you have translated books like Ramayana and Mahabharata, runs into thousands of pages. How do you do that? He said, oh, it happens. I was like, no, it happens. I mean, Sanskrit translation and, assisting the government in making economic policy, very different. But this was his reply, that it just happens. And somewhat similar I got from other people, that it happens. So I think somewhere it is a passion, it's a desire to write books, which actually lead to people, being able to do this along with their busy schedules. And I think you're the best example. Not only you've written a lot of books, you've written on very different topics. So the latest books, which we'll talk about in more detail, about your memoirs in St. Columbus, travel books, and whatnot. So coming to your books, which one is most favorite of yours?
I would say my two recent books, which are by HarperCollins, Charlie's Boys, which is my memoir on my school days set in the 70s and 80s, and Nikita, which is a work of fiction.
Yes.
I think these are my latest books, and I would say, like, while I love all the books that I've written, these two are they stand out because in Charlie's Boys there's a very high emotional quotient, and in Nikita I think over the years I feel that okay, I've also evolved as a writer, and I feel that for both the books, and so that's why these are like things which I feel okay, it's the culmination of years of kind of writing. So not only developing the craft, but also me evolving as a person.
Right.
And they reflect in the writing in these two books.
So talking of Kunzum, I think anyone would be mesmerized by your collection. This is a wonderful collection, very beautifully curated. A dream, a paradise for any book lover, I must say. Would you mind giving a small tour of at least this floor where you can show what kind of collection you have?
So, we put markers on all the sections. So these are all the new releases and the bestsellers.
Right.
Like this is where you have the children's books. Behind you are the young adults. Young adults are basically middle graders. We would say maybe age 12, 13 till about 17, 18.
Okay.
But of course, a lot of the what they call YA is also being read by adults.
Right.
And then we have a little, these are all the signed edition and the special editions that you see over here, which are all collectibles, because these are not something that come in infinite supply.
Okay, so these are limited editions.
These are all limited
okay.
editions. So for example, if you see a book like this, it's a classic, now a Jain Ayar, you can find a 200 rupee version,
Right.
or you can find a version like this, which has got these beautiful sprayed edges, a cover like this.
Right.
Now this is a book you would like to kind of collect and keep in your house for a lifetime or even for generations. Right, then and then of course you've got all these giftable books laid out on the tables. You've got these box sets, and then we move into different genres. You've got crime there, you've got horror, fantasy, self-help, humor, history. So they're all kind of laid out in different sections, and then right at the back is basically a zone where I display my books mostly.
Okay.
Yeah. You might call it a vanity corner, but I think I just wanted to have a little corner where I do my storytelling sessions and my and I also display my books.
Wonderful. Your books, and we'll talk about these books as well, especially Charlie's Boys, which is the latest book. So Kunzum also has some special section, I think entire floor dedicated to Penguin and HarperCollins only.
So just to give you an idea, the bookstore is laid out on 4 levels. The level we are standing on right now, we keep all the brands here, which you call the first floor.
Right.
The second floor is the world's only exclusive Penguin store. The third floor is the world's only exclusive HarperCollins store, and these are 2 of the biggest publishers in the world.
Yes.
And the top floor is what we have, what we call the Kunzum Theatre, where we do bigger format events for over 100 people. So that's how the store is laid out.
Wonderful. So here we are at the exclusive Penguin store, or the part where only Penguin books are sold. It's an entire floor dedicated to Penguin books. Ajay, I think this is one of a kind idea. I have not heard about it anywhere else. That you are selling on this particular only books dedicated to Penguin. As you said, you have another floor which sells only HarperCollins.
Yeah.
How did this idea of having an exclusive outlet only for a particular publisher, how did this came about?
So companies like Penguin and HarperCollins, they have such a wide range of books.
Yes.
And because we wanted to our guests to have an experience not only of the physical infrastructure, but also of the book browsing or the curation infrastructure, that's why we proposed to both these brands that why don't we dedicate floors where we can keep a much wider range of your books.
Yes.
And that's why, because if you go to the warehouses of these 2 companies, there's so many books over there. Even now, despite dedicating a floor, there's so many books we still can't bring in. So I think it's giving our guests a choice and exposing them to books they would otherwise not normally discover for themselves.
Right. So just one question, any problem you ever faced with the distributors or other bookstores that we have this exclusive right kind of thing for Penguin and HarperCollins, because they make most of the sales, Penguin and HarperCollins?
No, so there's never been a problem. And I think the retail trade I don't think we have a problem with each other because there are other challenges and that we need to all grapple with.
Right.
So we don't really see each other as competition, but really we are all working on our own little islands.
Wonderful. One related question to social media and its negative impact on books is the positive impact. We are seeing proliferation of many influencers as well as book influencers, and many people having podcasts. In fact, we ourselves having a podcast. How do you think that helps in pushing up sales of a book, and how it helps booksellers in particular?
In the Western market, especially on TikTok and to a great extent on Instagram and maybe even YouTube, the influencers have actually what real influence on what people are reading, and then obviously book sales. In India, unfortunately, and I've been saying this very vocally, especially in the last few months, I think in India needs those influencers where just because that influencer has mentioned a book, the needle moves in terms of sales.
Yes.
Right? You see, take a famous TikToker, if they just say, I recommend this book, I can guarantee you overnight, depending on the book and the influence of the TikToker or the book talker, as they call them, it could lead to overnight sales of 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, maybe even a million books. An Oprah Winfrey comes on the show and says, this is my book of the month.
Yes.
You can be guaranteed the book is going to sell by the millions.
Absolutely.
In India, we don't have that voice yet. So what we have are, I would say, most of us are micro influencers.
Right.
But we need some macro influencers. But you become a macro influencer only when you are deeply rooted in the subject. You know your books. When you're reviewing a book, you're kind of for the reader, they should know it's not just a very surface review,
Right.
but it's a very deep rooted review because you understand what literature is. And that's when and of course then it has to also be backed with marketing, because you might create great content, but if not enough people are viewing that and enough relevant people are not viewing that, then that's also a waste.
Right. I think that's a very valid point. Micro influencers.
Yeah.
Because they do not have that much impact on the sale of a
Yeah.
book. We still see the controversial books getting sold a lot. For example, Sanjay Badu's book about the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, that sold because of the controversy. There are other books related to, but there's a mostly related to government officials or any historical happening or geopolitical happening. But yes, India does lack that space wherein the book influencers are actually influential in that sense that when they say something, books do get sold. But that's definitely we can say a positive impact, and maybe over time we may see this thing, grooming up, this thing becoming more mature, and there are genuine, marketers, influencers who can actually, decide upon the sale of a book. Awesome. I think when we say visiting a bookstore should be an experience, I think everyone should visit Kunzum to actually feel that experience. I've been to many bookstores and it's really amazing to see what we have here. But yeah, we also have to talk about your latest book, Charlie's Voice, which is a memoir of your days in St. Columba. So let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So happy to address any questions that you may have.
Sure. So Ajay, it was wonderful exploring Kunzum with you, and now we'll move to Ajay Jain, the author. Ajay is author. So Ajay, it was wonderful exploring Kunzum with you, and now we'll talk to Ajay Jain, the author. So Ajay has written many books on a wide variety of topics. As you can see, some of the books are here. So this collection of books which contains very, very beautiful photographs. He written a fiction novel, Nikita. But today we'll be spending most of the time talking about Ajay's latest book, Charlie's Boy, a memoir of his days in the prestigious St. Columba School in Delhi. Ajay, my first question, why the name Charlie's Boys?
Well, for that you have to read the book.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give a spoiler, but I can only give a hint. Let's call it related to the master of discipline.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So that does arouse curiosity. Charlie's Boys, a memoir of St. Columbus.
Yeah.
A school known for being the school of Shah Rukh Khan as well. And you did talk about Shah Rukh Khan.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a very prestigious institution. So, wanted to start by asking, how were your days as a student in the 70s, 80s? How were those days? And what took you so long to write a memoir of your school days?
Well, what I can say is, when I was writing the book, I enjoyed my school days more than when I was there.
Nice.
Right? Because I think when you are in school, I think we are in a different frame of mind.
Yes.
Ek to, it was an all-boys school.
Right.
After a certain age, you say like, what is happening here? There are too many boys here, and there's like the academic pressure, and the times were such that everything was about academics at that time. Not that I didn't have a good time, but when I was writing the book, upon reflection, I realized that the whole writing process was so enjoyable. But then reflecting back on those days, then that like little nostalgia, that little that flavor of times that has gone by and will not come back. The simplicity of the times when everything we did, everything we aspired for, everything we owned was like was cherished, was cherishable rather.
Right.
Right? And चाहे वो school bus वो DTC की थी, चाहे हमारे there was like half the time there was no electricity in the school, there was no air conditioning, the windows were always open. Like our teacher would say, oh, there's no electricity, no problem, open the windows and let the climate come in.
Right.
Right. So things like those. And so yeah, I think um, it was a great time we had in school. And if I look back, I would not change that schooling for anything.
Right.
And why it took so long to write the book? I think one has to evolve as a writer.
Right.
Because this book is not only about narrating the anecdotes of the time, but there's a lot of reflection also. Right. So there's the me who's writing when he was in school,
Right.
and there's the me who's writing in the current avatar.
Right.
And as a writer, I was trying to write a book since 2010 based on my school. I even tried a fictional book set in the in St. Columba school. I tried different formats, but it was not clicking. And then about a year before the book came out, I went back to school on 2 successive occasions.
Okay.
Close to each other. One was the annual general meeting of our alumni association.
Okay.
And second was the memorial service of probably the most iconic of teachers we had, Brother Eric Steve D'Souza.
Okay.
On both occasions, the moment I entered the school, I was overcome with emotion. And I literally had to fight back tears even without talking to anyone. Because what I saw over there was the building, the atmosphere, the fields, everything, even the smell
Right.
had not changed. And then I realized that all of us leave school, but the school never leaves us.
Yes.
It's still there, standing,
Right.
waiting for us to come back.
Absolutely.
And when I was overcome with emotion, when we had that memorial service, we spoke about Brother D'Souza, of course, the great teacher, but it's also reminded us of all the great teachers we had, the whole, the value system, the whole education system. I said, I need to write something.
Right.
What I need to write, it still took me a few months to kind of evolve. But eventually I got there.
Right.
And that's how I ended up writing the book.
So when you talk of school, you said that you left Columbus, but Columbus never left you. What are your best memories? Was it with the teachers, with the friends, or was it some particular event? What it is that still makes you remember your school every day?
I think just those friendships, those relationships where there's never a give or take. It will be just together. And teachers who were strict, but they were also inspirations to us. Why? Because they were men and women who could have done anything else, but they chose to be teachers. They chose to be teachers when they could have been earning much more somewhere else.
Yes.
But they chose modest salaries here. Right? And I say this in this book. They were teachers who gave their today for our tomorrow. Right? And I think that the whole value system that like kind of it was overtly conveyed to us, but more importantly, being in that atmosphere for 13 years through osmosis, it just got ingrained in us. It became a part of our personality.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what really makes the memories of school so kind of potent for me.
Absolutely. I think it's very rare to hear such things in this age wherein everything is commercialized. A teacher, let's be honest, teaches for the money. That's a sad reality because of the cost of living and other factors.
Yeah.
To say about someone that they gave their today for someone's tomorrow is actually, I think, many people will not even believe that. They will say everything is commercialized, they charge heavy fees and everything. So how is that possible? But yes, there was an era and St. Columbus also reflected that. What is your best memory from St. Columbus?
I think the best memory are when we used to have Western music competitions in our school.
Okay.
Because those were the few days in our total 13 years when all the schools would come to our school. There would be like on our fields, there will be like the best of school bands playing. There will be like absolutely like a party atmosphere. When I say party atmosphere, it wasn't alcohol or drugs. It was we were just being still eating the same patty and the Coke and the Campa Cola or
Right.
77 or Coca Cola, whatever it was available at that time, right? We were just having that. But most importantly, like those were the days when girls came to our school.
Because it was a boys' school.
We were all boys
Yes.
school, so all the girls came, especially from the all girls schools. See, Loreto, Carmel, CJM, Presentation Convent, St. Thomas. So that was like, I think those days when we had these big events were the most memorable days.
Absolutely. And I think when you mentioned about patties and Coke, I remember as a kid who studied in like 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
That was a definition of a party, a patty or a burger. And if you
Absolutely.
get Coke, that was like the icing on the top.
Absolutely.
And we used to say, "अरे मैंने तो Coke पी थी कल, हमने patty मंगाई थी."
Yeah, yeah.
It was a big thing. Today the definitions, of course, have changed. So coming back to school again, you mentioned that is what your best memories. Any bad memory you think you don't want to recall? You wish that never happened. Any such thing in Columbus?
I wouldn't say any one particular thing, but where I find that the school, like maybe I couldn't participate or the school did not do enough for me, was in the extracurriculars and sports.
Right.
So what happened was that right from junior school, there was a set of boys who would kind of get into the debating team or the quizzing team or the cricket team or the football team, and वही set year on year कुछ ज़्यादा change नहीं हुआ, because the school did not, I know, maybe invest too much in us to kind of update our or kind of upgrade our skills or talents. So that's the one memory that I found missing, and maybe because that thing was so kind of latent in me that I need to do something. Maybe later in life I started doing something creative, which I couldn't do in school, and then I often joke with my classmates or my batchmates that you are the kind of the heroes for us. And you are the ones who, after school, gave up all your creativity and got into regular corporate jobs or your business ventures and all. And but I kind of got into it much later.
Right. So one interesting thing you mentioned about Columbus was computers, and they were like a very new thing in 70s, 80s decade. Many people did not know what a computer is, and no one would have imagined that computers and technology would influence our lives so much as it is influencing today. How was that experience? You would have seen not a computer, which is a very usual thing for anyone, but a big machine in which students, school kids might not have understood, what it is meant for, what exactly we will do. So how was that experience?
So St. Columbus was the first school in India that got a computer, where computer programming was taught. And because of that, computer programming was included as a subject in the ICSE board.
Oh, wonderful.
Right? Other schools and other boards followed much later. And so in the early, and we were the first batch who were taught computer programming. And logically, I should have been a computer program. I should have been sitting maybe somewhere in Bangalore or somewhere in the US. And like some of my classmates, probably would have been at the top of the pile amongst everybody who entered the software industry. But even though I loved programming, I finished top of my class, but I chose not, I didn't choose that as a field. But it was very initial days. We had the HCL machine, we had the Eagle machine, we had a little Apple machine, and it was fascinating. And we just applied our mind, our logic, our mathematical senses to do programming. It was, I think that was probably the best memory I have of my academic career. Programming on computers. And in fact, you see a photo here. That's me sitting in that. BBC was doing a program at that time.
Oh, nice.
Covering all how computers have reached a school in India.
Right. And this is how the computers looked like?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the age of laptops, I mean, it's hard to believe that such machines.
No. They were like big machines, and I'm telling you, the floppy drives had a capacity of 40K and 80K. 40K. 40.
It's not even MB.
It's not even MB. MB तो नाम ही था तब. Right. 40K की उसमें पूरी पता नहीं कितने प्रोग्राम आ जाते थे.
Of course, there was era of floppy disk, and we used to save. But then they became extinct now. Anything is there. Even 1 TB people say कि इसमें कुछ होता नहीं.
Exactly.
Space. Definitely. So, how you think school, I mean, a kid is influenced by his family, surrounding his parents, siblings, and school. These are two most important factors. How you think your schooling in Columbus has shaped you as an individual? And hypothetically, had been not into Columbus, how you think life would have been different?
So I can't say what schooling anywhere else would have been, but I can say that I may be repeating myself, but I think that value system, right? We were a missionary school, but that was one school where secularism was practiced not only by the letter but by spirit. And everything was about what is right and what is wrong. And I think that really shaped me. And then because of discipline, the quality, that shaped me as a professional. And that reflects in whatever I did later in life. Because I think you set the bar high.
Yeah.
Without, now you set the bar high, not necessarily to pursue any megalomania, but for good.
Yes.
And so even if I'm running a bookstore, it is like a social enterprise.
Yes.
Right? In the same real estate that I own, the same money that I've invested, it could have gone somewhere else.
Yes.
But just like some men and women felt that we need to impart good education,
Right.
maybe that same value system told me that we need a cultural oasis like Kunzum
Right.
for our society to be a better place.
Absolutely. So when we say St. Columbus, and one name which appears is Shah Rukh Khan. When people say, "Acha, wo Shah Rukh Khan wala school." You talked about Shah Rukh Khan in the book as well. He was there in the school in a senior class, of course. So you can tell a bit about that. Any experiences you had with him which you want to share, or at least you knew, because that time no one knew that he is the Shah Rukh Khan which he became. So anything related to him you remember?
So Shah Rukh Khan was 3 years my senior.
Yeah.
And I think right from junior school itself, Shah Rukh Khan was Shah Rukh Khan.
Okay.
There was like a little, I think that he was enigmatic. I think he was born a star.
Right.
And throughout, as I also mentioned in my book, like he was always looked up to. Everything was like Shah Rukh Khan, Shah Rukh Khan. There was something about him.
Okay.
And he was good in academics. He was, of course, good in theatre.
Yes.
He was good he made it to the school sports teams. But more than that, it's that halo, that charm that he had. And there's even a little anecdote I state that we had an elocution teacher, Mrs. Sudan. We all had the hots for her. But people used to say that she had the hots for Shah Rukh Khan.
Oh, okay.
Even though
Interesting.
he was in middle school at that time. And so that's Shah Rukh Khan for you.
Wonderful. So you many teachers you talk about. Who was your favorite teacher, and like who was the most you had influenced you most in your school life?
So Brother D'Souza for sure, who I mentioned earlier, and he was like a genius at a different level. And I also mentioned in my book, he was born around the same time as Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And with his mind and his capabilities, he could have been anyone, but he chose to be a teacher. Right? And so he had a very strong influence on us. There was we had a history teacher, Mrs. Manju Kak. I'm still in touch with her. Okay. She was a absolutely great influence because she taught us modern world history, and I was totally besotted by the subject. It's another matter that the whole school was in love with her. She was so beautiful.
Oh, nice.
And that also motivated me to come out tops on the subject to get her attention. Yeah, so that was like that little, that boyish thing. Yeah. Just like you had in the movie Mera Naam Joker.
Yes.
You had Rishi Kapoor being fascinated by Simi Garewal.
Yes.
I think it was that kind of a fascination that all boys have some fascination for the teachers.
Right.
And of course, I would say we were lucky that there were many, many more teachers who kind of just are so impressionable. I could just go on, and that would be a different podcast altogether.
Right. All right. So I have to ask some rapid fire questions from you as we are heading towards the end of the session. But 2 questions before that. One is, what message would you like to give to your school and the students there, because you have been an alumnus there? And secondly, what message you want to give to the book readers?
To my school, I would just go back and say that times have changed. People say that St. Columbus does not have the same glory, academic glory and otherwise, as it used to. And that is happening because St. Columbus has stood true to its social model, that we are here to serve and not to profit. And in fact, the other day, I had a guest over, a very distinguished citizen of India, and he was saying that, and he was resonating what I've been saying, that something like education cannot be a for-profit activity.
Of course.
Because the moment that's a for-profit activity, then everybody's accountability is to finances. And I would tell my school that stick to your core values. Things are changing, but you should not change. And I'm glad you have not changed.
Wonderful.
And
message to the readers,
like generally about the readers of books in general.
Books in general, and
I would say that to everyone, If you read books, very good. If you don't read books, it has to become a part of your life. Because if today, if all of us are suffering from different issues,
Yeah.
whether we admit it or not, whether it manifests itself into a very kind of a tangible issue or not, but somewhere in our subconscious, somewhere in our body, we are suffering because of this attention deficit, there's all the pressure, all the financial pressures, all this kind of comparing each other's lives on social media. But books are something that ground you back.
Right.
They bring you back and they say, like, life is good, life is beautiful, life is creative, and you are not alone. There is always somebody like us who's in the same happy state and the same sad state.
Right.
And only books can tell you that, and nothing else can.
Absolutely. Cool. So we're ending the session, but some quick rapid fire questions from you. Your favorite book among the books you have authored?
I would say Charlie's Boy is my favorite book.
Okay. Your favorite book other than those you have read? Oh, sorry. Your favorite book other than those you have written?
So I would say that at different stages of life, because of our whole mindset and the whole kind of being, the favorite book of a certain age and stage of our life may not be the same.
Right.
But of recent, say, I've been enjoying books by Friedrich Backman. My Friends was a great book to read.
Okay.
One of the books that's kind of stayed in my mind for a long time has been The Kite Runner.
Okay.
And then books which I read much earlier, maybe Gone with the Wind.
Hmm.
So these are some of the memorable books.
Who has the most influence on your life?
The biggest influence on my life, I would say, have been my teachers.
Okay.
Fortunately, my parents were also a very strongly positive influence in my life. I may have had differences with them, like all children do with their parents. But I think between my parents and teachers, I would say I was blessed.
Wonderful. One person you would like to bring back from past to present?
I would invoke Brother Eric Steve D'Souza, one of our teachers.
Nice. If not Kunzum, what would you have been doing?
If not Kunzum, I would still have been traveling the world, whether professionally or otherwise.
Right.
I would have been collecting stories and just thinking all the time, what little thing can I do to make this world a better place?
That's indeed a very noble idea to end the session with. Ajay, pleasure talking to you.
Same
We
here.
have covered not just about your days at Columbus, your books, and this amazing, amazing bookstore.
Thank you so much.
All those who are watching, first of all, please read Ajay's books, especially the latest one. Even if you're not in St. Columbus, this is something everyone can relate with, everyone can resonate with. And as far as Kunzum is concerned, I think as a book lover, I don't think I can recommend this bookstore more. It's an amazing, amazing bookstore. And I will say it's not just a bookstore, it is a place which gives you an experience, a vibe a book lover yearns for. Ajay, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Wish you all the best for Kunzum and your future books.
And I hope your show keeps growing, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.